Oh shit, we have an episode. I have the illustrious, well, Aitken in
Let
the
me just
house.
Google illustrious real quick,
Uh,
Landon.
yeah, we need to expand ourselves dictionary. How are you, my man? This is actually the first time you and I ever spoke.
Directly,
Correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Mm,
very well, man. I'm feeling good. Got a lot of focus on the right things right now. So
fuck yeah.
glad to be here, glad to be chatting to you. Senior stuff.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't think I've directly featured any of it just yet.
Not yet. Not yet. No, I don't. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. So the theme of this episode is going to be about sales influencers and how I think we're all kind of fucking fed up with just the direction and the vanity of influencer culture. I have a great conversation coming up later today with the motherfucker, and I can't wait to dig into that one. But like, talk to me, man. So it sounds like, you've got some shit going on. You're co-authoring a book uh, about with Keenan and gap selling, and or in this case, it's going to be about gap prospecting, which is going to be fantastic. But it sounds like from the conversation, you are starting to drift into your own new direction. What's walk me through that. What's going on in the life of Will?
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, Landon. You caught me at a very honest, transparent, and raw time in my life where
Mm.
I have recently come to some realizations about myself. You're gonna hear some therapeutic terms in here. You're gonna oh okay.
I'll
Went
be
to therapy, good man.
I'll be daddy therapist for a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah. Well,
Let's
I've
go.
always gone to therapy, but I never really shown up that much. But one thing I did recently was it caused me to go and relook at it and really be honest with myself. And I realized a lot of the reasons I've been showing up online as an influencer, as you said,
Mm.
um, haven't been all that healthy. And I think seeing that has helped me see a lot of the fact that there are many people doing that who are replacing online engagement with real, true, meaningful connections. And there's a trap of that, right? And some people go off the deep end, I find.
So when you say, and there's a few examples of influencers that I've noticed that have went off the deep end and feels like their life is kind of going in a different direction than the persona that they created online. And I guess for you, one of the biggest problems that I see with like just in generalities when we speak about like sales influencing and the value creation and then some of the responsibility that influencers have. And this is something like if you read my shit all the time, like I call out like really shitty bad behaviors all the fucking time. And it's not because I'm trying to be like a LinkedIn cyberbully, but there's just a lot of vanity and silverback gorilla chest thumping that I see happening. I guess for you, walk me through like what does that transformation for you like look like? Because and I don't know if we wouldn't necessarily want to. I don't know if I would classify you as an influencer. Just I want to be very like maybe you do. I don't know.
I don't mind the labels. You can call me whatever you want.
Yeah.
Some people don't like it. I don't really. It doesn't really bother me either way. Call it whatever you want. But
It,
I've been posting on LinkedIn every single day for 5 years. So what would you call that, really?
right. Well, I mean, we can refer to it as like content creation, but
Yeah, I think that's
and
the activity.
yeah.
That's the skill. That's the thing that you do as someone who shows up online. I think that's the
Hmm.
part a lot of people miss. You know.
Yeah. Do you think the animosity towards influencers is justified? Like, do you
Hmm.
think that maybe the the intention is good, but we're starting to get more into like corporate grifting and we're starting to see people that have like ulterior motives? Or do you feel that like I guess how do you feel the state of like social influencing is really like evolving or de-evolving compared to where it was like you mentioned you started
Yeah.
posting 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean,
Take that
here's
call.
the things that I've let upset me and things that have annoyed me when I've been saying this. But I also think we need to reflect on why these things upset us as consumers of
Hmm.
influencer content, right?
Yeah.
These people are of both sides. Why does that upset us? I think there is this trend of people who are very good at talking, but not very good at doing. And
Hmm.
there's this very strong feedback loop of validation that comes from social media. And it becomes much easier to get validation for just talking about something than actually doing the work.
Mhm.
And that's something that's very, very easy to get trapped into. Because at that point, you no longer need to actually do any kind of work. If you want dopamine and you value validation of other people, or you prioritize that, or maybe that's all you know,
Mhm.
then the easiest way to get that is show up online, put something out there that's going to get a bunch of likes, whether it be toxic, uninformed, bad advice, good advice, or just a selfie picture. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
That's like a speed dial to dopamine, and it's almost like a drug.
Mhm.
Um, so it encourages that type of behavior. And what that doing that over a period of time, it means that you stop doing and just start talking. And some
Mhm.
people get very good at talking. There is a skill to this. And that's the part that I'm now trying to focus more on. Because
Mhm.
when I first started creating, I wasn't doing it for likes. I didn't know any better. But then when you get some viral stuff, you get hooked on that. And then you
Yeah.
also feel bad when it's not going well, right? So you almost
Mhm.
like are attached to your engagement and use it as your self-worth, or maybe as a way to drive business, whatever it may be. Um, and that becomes an unhealthy cycle where it actually encourages you to talk more and do less.
Yeah. Would you say that content creation to a degree, at least it relates to you, influences part of your like day to day in the way that you interact with the world? Or how does, you know, because like for me, I do content creation, and sometimes I do find it to be a distraction. Sometimes I do find it to be kind of therapeutic. I'll write content, or I'll make a video, or I'll post something, because it is something I'm sincerely, it's how I feel in the moment. And a lot of it is like diary entries in a sense for
Some things
public.
belong in the diary. That's what I'll say about some people out there. They post things. I'm like, why did you post that one? You could have written
Oh
that
my
in a
God.
journal. But like that's the truth. There is, for me, content creation is really fun.
Mhm.
Specifically videos, honestly. There's something very, very it's very satisfying. I think
Yeah.
of it almost like a when you can create something from nothing
Mhm.
and it's actually kind of good and you're proud of it. You're not proud of it because people like it. You're proud of it because you did a good thing and you enjoyed making it, right? It's I almost like think of it like a carpenter, right? They don't go out there and make a table so they can get compliments on their table. They go out there and make a table because they're skilled at their craft and they enjoy it, probably,
Mhm.
right? Like that's the reason they're making the table. They're not making it so they can get compliments from people who go, "That's a nice table," right? The issue is social media and content creation leads to a lot of compliments and validation, especially if you get good at it, right?
Yeah.
And then you lose sight of the actual creation, the meaning, and the reasons why you were doing it in the first place, and you start showing up just for the outcomes. And when you're showing up just for the outcomes, there are shortcuts you can take that will lead to more of that without really putting in the work on the content or even backing up with any kind of data or source or really doing anything helpful. You could actually be putting out really harmful stuff and you're still going to get rewarded for it. And there's actually some shortcuts that will do that. Like I think of the really superficial stuff or the stuff that's purposefully hyper controversial, you know, that can be a shortcut to that dopamine hit.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I see, and just in general, is it feels like a piece of the audience that we speak to. One of the dangers that I see with, and it's anytime you go into like content creation and you have a certain degree of influence over an audience, and they watch you and they observe you and they take in the information, is that sometimes it feels like an echo chamber.
Hmm.
And sometimes it feels like it's difficult for you to receive polarizing or conflicting opinions or views that don't challenge the content, leading to not really evolving the content.
Hmm.
So I guess for you, how does that, because like and I can speak to my own like personal life, but how do you feel like that content, the echo chamber with the comments that you may receive, how do you feel like, how does that like affect your mental health? Because when I think this is one of the things that isn't really spoken about, in content creation in general, is
I'll tell
like,
you a story I haven't told before, Landon. This is a Landon Hobbs podcast exclusive.
oh,
You ready for this?
fuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go.
Okay. All right.
Let's
Let's
go.
go for it. The same thing that I was just talking about, the validation that you get from social media, all of
Mhm.
that is heavily tied to ego. You know what else is tied to ego? Criticism, right? So the more validation you get, the more attached you become to that validation, the harder it becomes to take any kind of critical feedback, all right? And therefore, if you are being driven by that validation, you're not showing up for the right reasons because you enjoy it or you have meaning or purpose behind it, the criticism becomes very challenging to take. So there was a little while ago, 2023, I worked at a company called Lavender, who you've heard of,
Yeah.
startup space. And I'd never been making more money. I was being somewhat toxically managed by a boss. I was deeply unhappy in my personal life. I thought I was hot shit. I thought I was the bee's fucking knees. And then I was also horribly burnt out, tired, and not showing up in any aspect of my life. It was a
Mm,
really dark time for me that year, 2023. My daughter had
mm,
an operation in January on her heart. That was scary. That caused trauma that I never dealt with for a long time. And she was in the hospital for like 4 weeks. And then I started a new job right after she got out. And then I was making more money, getting more validation than I ever had done before, right? So then when I got criticism that time, I would take it very badly. I would let it consume my entire day. And I remember it was actually my last day of working at Lavender. I was already planning to quit the company
mhm,
because of some other things that I wasn't happy about that didn't align with my values, not necessarily the ego thing. But the leaders there said, "Hey, we'd really like you to stick around for 4 weeks. Could you do that?" And I said, "Yeah," but I was kind of checked out. But I was showing up because that's part of my belief system. But someone criticized a clip on the Lavender page. It wasn't even a clip that I was in. Here's the funny thing: I wasn't even in it. I just hit the post button. And I didn't like that critique because I felt like it was wrong. So you know what I did? I went nuclear. And you will know this guy. I don't dislike him. I don't judge him at all anymore. I regret my actions, frankly. A guy called Clark Barron. We had made a joke about a parody email to a cybersecurity leader. Todd Clowes had written it, and he commented in saying, "This is dangerous about that because what if someone takes it seriously?" And in my mind, my ego was going, "Who the hell would ever take this blatant joke of an email seriously?
right.
Are you just complaining for the sake of it here?" And so what I did was I logged into the Lavender account and I left a comment on his thing. It was the meme that's like, it was like he posted like a 12-minute video about it, and I just didn't. And I started watching. And I was like, ugh, this is what the hell is this guy on about? So I posted a meme on his, in response using the Lavender account saying, um, uh, I'm not watching. It was like the meme. It's like I'm not reading all that, but sorry or thank you or you're welcome, whatever it means. You know, like it was like that. And he like went to Will. There's two leaders at
Yeah.
Lavender, and he went to them and was like, "Who did this? Oh, yeah, you better fire this guy. Whoever's behind this and all this shit." And so I deleted the comment because, frankly, I shouldn't have used the Lavender account to do that. I shouldn't have even used my own account for that. I should have just ignored it, frankly, because it wasn't important and it didn't really matter. But my ego was triggered, and this is where I'm talking about when you get the criticism. And I deleted the comment and I went in with my own comment and I made fun of him. And then then he kind of made another post. He went on a podcast and spoke about it on a live show and was kind of going like this. And so I made a parody post where I wrote another secondary fake cold email to a cybersecurity leader who I told them, "Hey, you know protection's important. Just ask your mum." That
Oh
was the first
shit.
line in the email. What I didn't know at the time was that Clark's father was quite ill, right? So I'd accidentally, in a way of me trying to funnily quip back at him, I'd actually
Mm,
touched on a really sore point. And I also don't think he knew who I was before that, so I don't think he read that was it wasn't really at him. It was just like it was relevant to the context of what was going on in my mind at the time. Regardless, he then went on a podcast, and this guy said he wanted to drop bombs on my house. I'm like, I have fucking kids. What are you on
what
about?
the
All I did was make
fuck?
a joke about this. But anyway, he went to my boss.
Clark? Hold on. Clark said that?
No, some guy who Clark was on the podcast with,
Oh,
who wasn't even part of the situation. He was like, I want to put a JDAM on this person's house, which I didn't know what JDAM meant. So I Googled. I was like, this guy wants to send a missile to me? I don't understand. All I did was make fun of someone's. All I made was like a mum joke, you know? I didn't
yeah.
know how that landed. And I was responding entirely out of defensive egoness, right? So this is critique. He eventually hit up the Wills again and said, I don't think this person should be working for you. And they were like, okay. And I was 3 weeks into my 4 week notice period. So but then he went online and bragged about how he got me fired and all that shit. But they still paid me for the 4 weeks, so I never really lost anything. If anything, I got a week of vacation, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But I do regret the way I let that get to me. I wasn't
Yeah.
even being criticized in that situation, but because I had these ego issues, that meant the critique really got to me and took up my entire day for like a week for me.
It's fucked up too, because when you are making this content, a piece of you goes into like the content, and it is hard. I don't care who you are. Like if you do this daily and you make this like a regular ritual, it's hard not to take things personal. So I understand where you're coming from.
I didn't even make that one as well. It was my
Yeah,
colleague Raina who edited it. It was Todd who made the email. It featured Jen Allen Knuth. So like, I think I was almost being really defensive over just like them. I don't really know. I'm not going to sit there and say I was being selfless because it was all my ego doing the talking, right?
yeah,
But that was an example of where critique can really send you down a rabbit hole.
yeah. And it's just, I think when we do talk about critique and we do talk about, there's the term haters, which I hate the term hater in general. And I sympathize and I understand where you're coming from because, and I also understand where old boy he may have been in a sensitive
Well, I
time in
really
his life.
understand him now.
Yeah, yeah.
Back then
Well,
I didn't.
but the fact is, it's like these comments don't know that they're piercing, and it's coming from this anonymous, like a screen, right? Like we don't treat the people like real people when there's
Mm,
a screen dividing us, and so which is partly the reason I have a persona online for my own self. And I'll make these comments because these sometimes it is easy to detach that these aren't real, that you in your mind, this isn't a real person on the other side of the screen, but it is. It really truly is. And so the things that we say, the things that we post, and the way that we engage influences these interactions, and it can be toxic, it can be bad. But I think what what's hard when you work at like a going back to what you were talking about with Lavender, it's really hard to disassociate that identity around like this content creation when one you do start to build, if you are a bad performer, this is nothing to you, but if you are um not, not really, like you mentioned before early in the conversation, people that will make this content and they suck at their job, or they don't have a lot of experience, or they don't really know what the fuck they're talking about, but they know
mm.
how to make a video, and it instills this false confidence. And I feel when I'm doing a bunch of, I'm talking, you're laughing,
Yeah, I
but
do.
when you're posting, not you, but like in general, when someone is posting a bunch of content, and we have an echo chamber, and we have a bunch of likes, and it's like, oh fuck, jumping me, I'm getting my shot, right? And then I feel empowered when I'm right, like when you have that validation. But at the same time, though, it's so funny. You can have somebody that makes like a lot of content and they're actually really mediocre in their actual performance.
Hmm.
So, do you ever, when you're, and when we're talking about like social influencers or just influencers in general, do you ever like look at their content and be like, this person's a fucking phony? What do they know? And like, does it, does it affect how you want to, like, this is the brand that I don't want to be? Or if that makes sense, like, how does that, when you see somebody that clearly is full of shit, like
Mm.
how does that, like, what goes on in your head when you're like making your own content and you see all of these like bad people that just obviously are not qualified?
I think you had asked me this question a couple of weeks ago, I would have felt differently. But right now, I'm just like, it's not my business. I don't care. If I don't like
Hmm.
it, I don't have to look at it, right? But I also know that I have felt that feeling in the past. Um, because I think that even that's a little bit of ego as well. When you see that and you want to call it out, right? There's something
Hmm.
that's being challenged there that doesn't seem right or fair. It's emotional, right?
Yeah.
When I've seen that, I think you have to. The ones that really get me are the gimmicks, like
Hmm.
the clickbait and that stuff. I don't think I read enough people's content or really care enough to see that enough to really get upset about it. I also I'm pretty I mostly engage people who I know personally now these days. Sometimes I find someone new and that's always good, right? I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Um, but I know a lot of these people as well, so I kind of know what they're all about. Like I've done a good job kind of getting my feet down to not so much of that stuff that you hate. Like I purposefully ignore it, remove it, hide it, unfollow because I have felt myself bubbling up over the amount of BS I'm seeing, right?
Hmm.
And I thought, okay, I'll put a boundary in place for that. And this was even before I challenge my own ego. But the things that the reasons why those were upsetting me would also be similar to a similar feeling or emotion to getting critique. You know what I mean? It's like you feel injustice, right? You feel it's wrong. You feel like something's unfair, and all of those are very heavily tied to your own emotions as well. I've seen a lot of hate, and do you know why I see this a lot? Actually, it's not on LinkedIn. I see it tons on Instagram. The Instagram
Instagram.
sales train is driving
Yeah.
me up the blooming wall. I see this. I'm like,
Jesus
oh God,
Christ.
why are you telling people this? Why does this have 100,000 likes? This is some of the worst advice ever. This is offensive. I saw a video the other day where it was someone who was door to door knocking, and they're like, I knock on the door, I take 3 steps around, I turn around, I look at my phone, so that way they have to get my attention when they open the door. I'm like,
Oh
what
my
what
God.
a deceptive, horrible thing. And it's got like 50,000 likes. People are like, wow, that's great, because then it switches the power dynamic. I'm like, no, that's manipulation. That's if you knock on my door and I open the door and you turn around and be like, what are you doing? I'm not going to think, wow, this person's so busy, you know? So it's actually going to hurt people giving that advice as well, right? But even in that case, I'm like, leaving a comment on this is not going to help.
Yeah.
Validating this in my own mind isn't going to help. I can't call it out. I can't challenge it. I can't change it. People have already seen it.
Yeah. I think it's so funny though, because like we look at the accountability of these of folks that do have a fairly large following, and I do think that there's some responsibility when you have an audience in the hundreds of thousands, when you have hundreds of thousands of
Sorry, my
people
dad
that
just walked in.
no
Start
no
over,
no
'cause I'm going to pull a
shit,
weird face then.
no. I throw plushy toys at my dad
All right, okay,
when
cool.
yeah
I
like
didn't have
little
any
like
plushies, but I do have a banana.
yeah, well, I throw the banana. Any fruit that is
Yeah,
rotting, I'll just throw in
yeah.
his direction. But I, when we're looking at these people that have like a very large following, and I don't want to mention any specific. Andy Elliott's a perfect example.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, piece of shit.
I've criticized him.
Just a big dildo, right? Just a big piece of shit.
Massive dildo.
Fucking dildo, right? Just a big pink floppy one. And my issue that I have with people like Andy Elliott, and I don't know how familiar you are with his content.
Never liked to be.
Well, I like to follow it sometimes, and I follow it because one, I find it really cringy, and I want to kind of be a masochist in that way, where I'll watch like really cringy like sales influencers and be like, why do people? I try to understand these folks, right?
Hmm.
I've had influencers on my podcast. Jeremy Miner's another example of someone should have went harder on him in the interview, but I wanted to
He's
really
not as bad as Andy, but yeah.
no, well, he's not. So Jeremy Miner did multi-level marketing for years and years, and he teaches on NEPQ, and his whole thing is trying to do kind of like amateur level persuasion, and he
It's like I always, whenever I hear someone say you've got to act this way or make it seem or make the customer feel this way even when it's not the truth, that's where I get a little bit spidey sense when I see bad sales advice. It's like, oh, pretend to be shocked or pretend to be confused. And I've heard his opener that
yeah,
I'm like,
confused old man, yeah.
oh, hi, and you've got some paper here, and hi there, it's Jeremy Miner. Uh, I had a, and he does all that. I'm like,
Yeah,
come
he's like
on,
clinkering. So
that
I,
stuff.
I
I'm like,
I bring this up because like there were so many things I wanted to call out on our podcast, and I went into it with the intention to understand the mind of someone who was a genuine manipulator. Like genuinely, it was manipulation, and I really wanted to understand what's going on because it's a guy that worked in multi-level marketing,
hmm.
and he was like entangled in a bunch of different like personal lawsuits, and I didn't want to come at it the angle of just like tearing this guy down, but I see someone like Andy Elliott, and when we look at Andy Elliott, and like one of the main claims of fame that this motherfucker has is he worked at a dealership and he made over $700,000 in a single year working at a buy here pay here dealership, but it was for like subprime
Hmm.
people with really shitty credit. And
You're like,
what he doesn't fucking tell people, one, is the way that he closed it is he would falsify information to the banks, and he would say that the customer was put down a deposit that they never fucking put down. Well, so no shit, you're going to close a deal if it's $0 down for a brand new fucking car, and you're selling to people that don't get qualified anywhere else, and you're basically falsifying those records. And so you have that person that's then advocating, this is the way that I sell, you should follow it.
Well,
That's my problem.
yeah. And I think also there's an element to this, right? The reason we know who Andy Elliott is because he comes online and says controversial things because of that. It will get him the
He's
reach.
such a dildo.
He's
God.
not. That's the thing. That's leaning into the things that he knows is going to. The controversy is what made him rich. If he came online and was like, "Here's how to actually sell," he wouldn't have. No one would know where his name is, right? If he had any opinion or skills in that department, which I don't think he does. But the fact he's come online and said, "If you don't have a six-pack, you won't work for me," he's purposely being controversial because that placates to people's hate comments. And there are some people who see that and don't open the comments and leave a hate comment, but they will see it and be like, "Yeah, man, six pack or die," you know? Or like,
alpha male.
I'm so alpha. Starts a video of like, "No one will fuck my wife like I do." I'm like, that is the most weird thing to talk about.
It's so
like,
weird.
I would never say that out loud.
God, he's such a cuck. He is such a cuck. He is. I'm sorry. He is such a cuck, and like part of the problem.
I know.
I bet you he watches other men fuck his wife.
Oh, 100%. You don't talk about your wife being fucked by the dude that often.
Dude, you're so like this is a guy that by the way, he literally tells men in the audience, take off your shirt. He's like while he's wearing short shorts. He wears short shorts.
Why does this upset us though, Landon? That's the real question. If we dig into this, because let's
stick it.
Why does this? Because even now, and I've got a lot more transparency on my clarity on my thing. Why do you think this is so upsetting for both us and other people? Because I made a video recently, it's my best point video in a long time on Reels, where I literally reacted to an Andy Elliott video, and I was like, "What was that?"
Okay, stand up, take your shirt off. I want you to do it in front of your friends. Come on, it's no big deal. This isn't about making fun of him, because I can make all you can take your shirts off, and maybe one or two of you look halfway decent. Chris, how old are you?
27.
Chris, I want you to grab some of your fat. That is not who you are. And nobody's fucking telling you the truth anymore, because the truth is...
Yeah, it's... So I'll tell you what my thought process is on, and when I see things like that. And specifically the outrage that I personally feel. And I'll tell you where it stems from. And it's not some moral high ground. My problem that I have with people like Andy Elliott and the type of diarrhea that's vomited out of his mouth is that it's dangerous because it's this cult-like atmosphere. So we have this atmosphere where he's trying to pump people up. And we have a bunch of people, fucking Grant Cardone, smashing their fist up, yelling top of their lungs and stuff, right? Sounds good. And the core message of it is get hyped, be alpha, crush, do what you got to do. You need to be a killer. You need to be a savage. And I get the mentality. The problem is when we take this cult-like thing and we start to really dig in and we reverse engineer, well, what's actually going on behind the scenes? You have a bunch of really young, impressionable men and women, single mothers included, that see this type of content and they think the ticket out of my life and the way I will go through financial liberation and financial freedom is by following someone like Andy Elliott. He's very successful. Those are the things he's doing. That must be what I need to do. And so one, it perpetuates this very bad behavior that's one, very, very toxic in general. Two, it's dangerous because if we look at the price tags that are affiliated with people like him, he's asking not for a nominal $200 a month. No. He's asking for mortgage payments. So we're talking thousands of dollars, Will, where people are spending this money to be in the presence of this omnipotent man, and he's asking for thousands of fucking dollars to take training with him, and you have these like pathetic, and I'm sorry, these pathetic audience members who are novices at what they do. They're really bad, and he shames them in the fucking crowd on video and broadcast it to millions of people. And so what the fuck is the problem with that? You have a bunch of people that really suck at their job, and his whole thing is to demean them, make them feel like shit, make them look like losers. He ties their success to their manhood. The man who wears short shorts. Get fucked.
and
And
encourage his entire team to wear a shirt that says Elliott across it.
it's so weird.
I think that there could be a more simple explanation for it as well.
It
And I think
is.
the same reason that many of us, and the people who don't see this stuff, maybe weren't raised in such a way, but many of us have a good idea of what is right and wrong, the rules of how life and things and fairness is meant to go. And when we see that, what we see is that not being played out correctly. I think we see that and say that's not right because he didn't do the work, or he even did worse things, right, to get here. And it's not right that he's tricking people and all this stuff. It's very similar concept to, it's not when you're stood in line and someone cuts. You know what I mean? That activates a right or wrong response in your mind where you go, it maybe doesn't directly affect you, but you still want to say that was wrong because we are ingrained in our values. And a lot of the people who don't see that are either naive or don't have those values. So that's frustrating to us as people. That's what activates our, like, I got to do something about this. I want to say something.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I think part of it too is when we look at internally, like men and women do this. I'll speak as a man, as a father. You know, I have an 11-year-old, and I'm trying to provide a life for her, and I'm going through my own personal strife with myself and the mother of our child, and you know, we split, and I see where I live at times, and I look at people like Andy, and I'm like, man, what is he doing that I'm not doing? Why is controversy so sexy to these people? And I think about it in terms of
Mate,
what,
just to slow down, Landon.
yeah,
Do you know how fucking easy it would be for you and I to do what he's doing right now?
I know.
Do you know how easy that is?
It
It
is.
is so easy to tell people exactly what they want to hear. It is
Yeah.
so easy to make it seem easy and brag and rent jets and be like, look what I can do. But it's not true. And if you did that, you would have no values and you wouldn't be the man you are today. You wouldn't be the same father to your daughter you are. So it sounds great in theory, but what's left at the end of that? There isn't happiness. I promise you that.
No, it's never happy. It's never happiness. And the thing is that there's a constant internal battle that goes on, where we feel, do we have to challenge our morals in order to be ultra successful? And it is a battle. And I think what it really boils down to is establishing a set of internal rules that we follow, and we create these rules. It's a weird fake thing that we've made, and we believe in honor, and we believe, if you think about like a gentleman's duel, like back in the day, and you know, people, they would go back to back, and then they would take 12 paces, and then they would shoot each other, or a gladiatorial ring, and it's how do we fight and make it honorable?
Yeah.
But then we see
people can win. If you start doing a duel and the guy just turns around and shoots you, he's alive and you're gone, right?
Yeah, you think that. You think that. But it's reinforced. If we look at like people like Andrew Tate, and ultra controversial as well. What is he known for? He's known for basically prostitution. Basically, I mean, obviously, like there's the male like red pill movement that he's trying to create. And we look at like all the negative things that he's done, cryptocurrency, crypto scams, all this shit. And I think a lot of people, young guys, young women, single mothers, they feel like, in order for me to be financially free and successful, I have to follow those things, and I have to do those things. And if they can do it, I can too. And it's just, and if we look at like our like the life of W-2, I get the reasoning. People feel trapped in W-2 life. People feel trapped in their lives. It's low paying. $150,000 used to be a lot of money. So that's not much anymore. And it's fucked up because it sounds like a lot of money. It's not though. It's all relative. And you think, like, people think, oh, about $150,000, that's a lot of money. I mean,
that house costs $550,000 in my city, in the middle of our side of nowhere in Canada. Right? Do you want to know how much mortgage payment would be on that? $4,000.
It's fucking crazy.
That's not. So to even afford a house, like, let's just assume 25% of your 30%, I think is the reasonable number. You need to be making $12,000 a month Canadian after tax to be able to afford to buy a house. $12,000 Canadian, and that's Canadian again, times 12, what is that, 140? You have to make $150,000 to afford to even purchase a 3-bedroom home that's not downtown. It's out where I am in the suburbs on the outskirts of Halifax. That is insane. That's not like to even have a chance of owning a home. So yeah, you're right. Money's not as much anymore. So you see this stuff and it sounds tempting, especially if you're making less than 150,000. Most people are. It's
Yeah.
like minimum wage. It adds up to what, like 50, maybe ish, if that. And it's not even guaranteed a lot of the time. It's at will, or it's temporary, or it's part time. So they have to work multiple jobs to even have a chance of surviving and making rent. Don't get me started on rent. It's way more expensive than that mortgage
Jeez.
payment I explained.
God damn, it's crazy. And like it's fucked up too. It's really fucked up. So and we're kind of going on like a tangent
I
in
know,
a
I
sense,
know.
or like, well, but it all ties together. It's all yin and yang, like wax on, wax off. But when we look at the burnout that people are experiencing and how people are just so disassociated with corporate life in general, like you worked at Lavender, great guys on the surface, right? All the wills over in Lavender, but there's a
I was
I
one
went
of those, by the way. Just there's two.
there's two, and then there's
I'm not the one with equity. I'll tell you that.
yeah. I was looking at like their glass door, and I made a post on it, basically I called it out because they had like I don't know what kind of culture they had, but the glass door opinions, in case the Wills over there want to fucking come at me, fuck you. They had like a very like sexist, misogynistic culture, and that I've heard, and I saw from Glassdoor. And there was like things I heard. I'm not going to go into this. I'm not trying to like shit on them, but the point that I'm trying to make is you work for companies like that, and you work for these companies that there's a lot of sludge that's going on indoors, and it erodes how our mental health. We look at these companies that do these layoffs, and oh fuck, my I have trust issues again, right? You go, especially a startup land. You go into like startup to startup to startup. Some of them are really cool. It's high energy, really addicting, and then you crash and burn. And what this does, at least for me, is it reinforces the belief that I can't trust the current system that I'm doing things. And when I work, I mean, I've worked in big billion-dollar companies. I used to work for AT&T. It was a soulless fucking company. It was totally soulless. I worked at a 100% commission company called Cellular Sales Verizon Wireless. Soulless as fuck. It was a lone wolf environment. Only thing you needed to do was make money. That's the only thing that mattered. And my loyalty was tied to my paycheck. And I saw a coworker who's a good friend of mine. He was hospitalized, and he had a life altering surgery that he needed to have. And our boss didn't check on him. Didn't he had to work there for 3 years. No texting, no kisses, no smooches, no flowers, no visiting. No, hey, when are you coming back? That was the only messaging, only correspondence. All the years of servitude and loyalty that this man brought to the table was effectively summed up in the form of a text message by our piece of shit boss. And I saw that and instantly was like, that's how they see me. I'm only as useful as I'm bringing revenue to the company. And so I see these things and I've experienced all this burnout in all my career. And I sound like I'm an angry person. But when you're beaten down by your personal life and you're beaten down by your company and corporate masters and you see these things happening, I can see the appeal to wanting to follow an influencer. I absolutely, because I started to get into content game because I'm like, well, maybe I should get into it because I need to find a silver bullet for my life. Right. But yeah,
Here's
go
what I
ahead.
wish every influencer would do, because this is kind of, despite the fact that I had validation and critique ego issues, one thing I've always said is never talk about something you haven't done. Never give advice on something you haven't done, and ideally done a lot. You don't, not like, if you're an air host, if you've been an air hostess, you shouldn't be giving advice on how to fly a plane.
Right.
If you've only ever been a flight attendant, should I say, not an air hostess. I think that's what they're called now. And similar to that, I think that's where people get lost in this all as well, and they get addicted more to the talking about it than doing it. I also think it's better if you're still doing it, honestly, and because there's only a certain amount of time. Like, oh yeah, back in my day, that's no longer relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also just, if you're going to do it, are you doing it because you enjoy it, or are you doing it because you enjoy all the attention it gets you and that makes you feel bigger? Because that really doesn't matter. All these things come from inside. And that will run out. It will change. The validation will go away. You'll become less relevant. You'll post something that gets you cancelled. You'll do this. You'll do that. The platform will get taken down. Your account will get deleted. Something will change. And then what will you have? Nothing. So it needs to come from deep within you if you really want to truly be happy. And I think a lot of influencers that I see who are almost addicted to this stuff, because I've felt this, are using that in place of real, true self-improvement, happiness, and health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to see as well. It's also their thing. That I hope some of them who I'm thinking of in my mind right now can fix that. There are others who are just grifters, who have no morals or ethics and will lie because it will make them money, and that is all that matters to them. It doesn't matter who gets hurt along the way. No better than a bank robber or a mugger.
No, and I think to your point, I do think that when you make content, the intention, at least for what I'm doing and the way that I see your content, is we make content first and foremost to build, and like everyone talks about this term value, but like I'm going into it for me with the intention of actually I want to help people. I want to provide honest, real uh, information that isn't guarded by industry secrets and you needing to pay to get into my $200 community. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sell myself in that way. The intention for me is just help someone. And if I'm able to help someone, then I'm good. Then I think I've achieved my goal. And I think I do want to ask you, now that you have started to do like you're distancing yourself away from, the old Will, and you're distancing not that was bad,
It
but
sounds cliche. It's even cringe to even hear it or say it. I'm working on myself. Let's say that.
yeah, I guess for you, what is that roadmap now like? That how do you imagine that's going to be defined?
I will say this, Landon. I will come on here and confess to you right now, and anyone who is still listening to this after the 6 tangents we went on.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
I was lost for
Mhm.
many years, and I had started showing up. When I started, it wasn't why I started, but it sure as hell took over very quickly. The moment you start getting likes, people saying you're so smart, you're so funny, and that bleeds into everything in your life. Nothing compared to that amount of validation. You've got it in your hand, just ready
Yeah.
to go anytime you want it. That's not healthy, and it meant that I ignored a lot of other elements of my life. I've always loved my kids, but I know there's times I haven't shown up as much as I want to do. Why? Because I was checking my reactions. That's so sad to say out loud. So
Yeah.
sad. So I made a video yesterday, and featuring that video are a few of my friends and people in the network. And you know what? I felt when I made that video, I just really enjoyed putting it together,
Mhm.
working with cool people. I enjoyed making it from scratch. And like I come back to that carpenter analogy, I posted it and it didn't do that well. And that's okay because I had a ton of fun making it. And I kind of felt like I was proud of it. And that's all
Mhm.
that matters. It's me feeling proud of my work and what I'm putting out there, not how it was received by the audience. Because if you get attached to that, that is a vicious cycle where you can if I wanted 1,000 likes, I could do some really horrible shite,
Yeah.
But would it be worth it? At what point would I no longer be who I am?
I guess for a kind of like a parting wisdom, because you've obviously seen both sides of the coin and you've experienced it from the perspective of I know what content works and I know what content doesn't work and I know what I want to do now. But if you had someone that was in kind of going into like not a tangent, but they think, well, I don't want to do it because I don't want to come off as cringy. I don't want to do it because like what you've alluded to is there's a lot of ego that's attached to these things. But we know in selling in 2025 and we're trying to be more professionally well-rounded and we need to be better and we need to evolve and we need to raise our floor. If somebody's going to go into content creation, why do you think now is the time to do it amongst the noise of all the bullshit that's out there? And what is that? How can they really be like a real value differentiation uh, in their drive?
My belief is that there are some serious upsides to doing this stuff. Obviously, I've built an entire career around an entire business off the back of what I do online. It's kind of also why I can't just quit it now.
Mm-hmm.
I also enjoy it still. I really do. The thing that you'd want to do if you really want to show up the valuable is be honest. I think that's just all these things that don't upset that have upset us have one single theme. They are dishonest. They're not the truth. So come up and show your truth, and don't be afraid to do that. The same reason that people don't want to post is also ego. It's just the other end of it. Like I don't want people to see this. I don't want to be judged. Right? It's okay to show up and you share your truth because that can be helpful to someone who hasn't got to that point yet. So think about the things that you've done. Write down, be present in your actual life and the things that you were doing. And you'll find there are a million things that you learn every single day. And if you can share that and help someone else learn that, that's pretty darn rewarding. But it's got to be your truth, not something that you just make up and go ahead and do or read in a book somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be something that happened to you. And I think that's the easiest way to do it, because what happened to me today, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example, it may not have happened to someone else yet. So if I talk about that or I share that, then that could help someone else better handle that problem when they get to it, whether that be sales, life, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's the most honest way to show up if you want to be online right now.
Yeah. I think that's really what I really truly feel that when we look at like the political climate, I'm not going to get into it, but when we look at the climate of what people are really responding to and how they're activated, I think people really are now more than ever. And maybe it's just because I live in a bubble, I don't know, but they want really authentic content. They want real authenticity and sincerity with people, and they're tired and exhausted of everything having an agenda. And I think I do think that there needs to be more healing that happens in the world, and we do need to speak our truth, and you can do it in your voice, and it doesn't need to be about the intention of being ultra successful. You just have to enjoy to some degree. I disagree that some people say you don't need to follow your passions, but I do. But at one thing I'll say, and this is the last thing, is a lot of people have really great ideas. My dad is a perfect example of somebody that has 2 masters and a bachelor's and wonderful ideas, but nobody fucking cares about his ideas because he never discloses his ideas.
Yes.
And so all of the information that's stored in here, how is he supposed to let the world know? And he badly wants it. And I think for anyone that is like watching this episode, I do think that you should raise to a standard of, I want to give the information that's here. I want to convey that to the world. And you can do that honestly
Almost your obligation.
Yeah. You don't have to sell your soul to do it.
No, you don't. You do not.
Well, listen, we're at time. I really want to thank you, Will, for hopping on. You're co-authoring it's Gap Prospecting.
Gap Prospecting, that's correct. I had to beg Keenan for almost a year to get him to agree to that one.
That's going to be heated. That's going to be good.
I'm excited for it. It's really good. I'm proud of it.
Sneak peek. What can the audience expect? Because I'm a huge fan of Keenan, by the way.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
The reason I approached him is because Gap Selling was a book that I read when I dropped my ego and I tried to learn sales and got really good at it for the first time. A lot of that changed the way I thought about things.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to work with him, because he had a way to deliver that and a unique thought process and a delivery mechanism that I really resonate with me. What can people expect? Some honesty, some transparency, some really tactical stuff, and some really psychological stuff that takes a look at things I don't think anyone else has really looked at selling and the art of being able to do outbound with like a really understanding why it works. I think so many people talk about how, especially online, because that stuff is tactical and easy. This goes like, if you take it seriously and you read it, then you will have a better understanding of your buyers in general and why you're doing what you should do, why something works, and why something might not work tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, Aitken, everyone. Until the next time.
Appreciate
be good.
You,
yes, sir.